Hello everybody, one more time. My name is Alex Centeno with Mercados Interactive Partners, located in the Research Triangle area in North Carolina, and our focus is to help businesses of all sizes make more money through the use of a strategic website design, custom digital media development, and web marketing. For more information, you can contact us at 888-525-8117 or visit us on the web at mercados.com. So as it goes with our mission, some of these videos are intended to show especially aspiring digital media artists how to use digital media, how to develop applications, and how to use digital media to communicate. Most of the time it's going to be for business purposes, but you can communicate anything with digital media. It can be still graphics, it can be video, it can be many things, and for the most part we have been doing Photoshop videos of how to create still graphics with Photoshop, and this is no exception. So our sponsor for today, of course, is mercados.com, and so check us out at mercados.com. And so here I have the picture of a model provided by Stock Exchange. You can visit them at sxc.hu. And what we're going to be taking a look at today is how to use the curves panel. The curves panel, it's probably my favorite adjustment layer. So many people love to use levels, and the levels adjustment is fantastic for certain things, especially since we took a look at last video using the levels panel with 32-bit. Curves is not available in 32-bit, so sometimes you're going to have to use the levels adjustment as opposed to the curves adjustment, and they somewhat are related to each other. They allow you to change the composition of the pixels of the image, so you can make them darker, you can adjust the saturation, you can adjust hue, so you can change basically any part of the image in terms of the coloring of the image by using any of these two tools, either the levels or the curves. But the curves give you a lot more detail, capacity of altering. You can alter every single part, every single section of your image with the curves, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. So before we begin, let me just say that you can apply the curves panel or curves directly to the layer that you're working on. In this case, we're working on layer 1. So if I was to press Command M in a Mac or Control M on a PC, then I would get the curves panel, and if I was to make any adjustments or any changes, they would automatically affect the pixels in the layer in a destructive manner. And what that means is that the layer would never become the same as before. It would be in a destructive way. The second way, which is my favorite way, is to create what's called an adjustment layer with a curves setting. So what we are doing effectively, so we take a look here at layers, what we're effectively doing is that we're placing a layer on top that is adjusting anything that is below, in this case the layer number 1. So if we were to take a look at the settings here, we could adjust it and go back to our layers, and if we turn off this adjustment layer, you can see that the image goes back to what it was originally. Therefore, we're not affecting in a destructive way our original layer, and that's very important. The second thing is that when you have an adjustment layer, you can adjust the layer so that it affects everything underneath, or that it affects just a layer below, which is called a clipping layer. So we can just automatically create a clipping mask therefore affecting only the immediate layer that is underneath. So you don't have to affect everything that is underneath. If we want to affect only layer 1 instead of layer 1 and the background, then we would make it a clipping mask. All right, so let's take a look at the different things that we have in a curves panel. So the first thing that you notice here, well, actually, let me go ahead and do it with the traditional curves so that we have a little bit larger panel. So I'm going to press Command M, and we're going to see here our traditional curves panel. So we have presets at the top. So if I click there, I'm going to have like different options that are set up as presets, and I can create my own presets that are located under this first section. So this ones come automatically with Photoshop, and these ones are created by you. So you can always create custom new ones. The second icon here is that you can also save them, and you can load them afterwards. So you can save your presets to disk and then load them afterwards. Here we have the channel that we're affecting. So you don't have to apply the curves to the whole composition. You can affect only certain channels. And that is important because you can also change what scheme you're using. So you can be saying, well, let's affect only red channel, green channel, or blue channel, or let's go ahead and change to lab color mode, and so we can affect only the luminosity of the image, or let's go ahead and affect only the yellow and blue channel, and we're going to take a look at that in a second. Then afterwards we have here affecting by points. So if I click, I'm going to be creating points in my curve, and to remove those points I can just click and drag outside. So click and drag outside of the curve and it gets clean. Or I can just simply, if I want to start from scratch, simply press the Option key and hit reset. The other option is to directly do it with the pencil tool, drawing the curve that I want. And as you can see, this smooth button also becomes available when I do that, so I can smooth the curve in steps. So I can draw whatever I prefer and then smooth it out. So those are the two modes that I can affect the curve. To the left here, we're going to have the output from dark to light pixels. So we're going to have the midtones exactly at the middle. And then we're going to have the input in the bottom, in the horizontal axis. And we're going to have the darker pixels to the left and the lighter pixels to the right. This can be changed if you, instead of wanting to use light representation of pixels, you want to use pigment or ink representation of pixels, and you can change that by clicking right here. So as you can see now, the light is to the left and down, and the dark is to the top and right. I like to use it in the light representation. The other thing here that I have is this little icon with a finger that allows me to make changes directly on the image. So I can just click this and hold a specific section of the image, and I make alterations in those levels. So let's go ahead and select something dark so you can see here how I'm moving those dark pixels. Okay, so this allows me to affect the curves directly in the image. And then we have here the eyedroppers. Eyedroppers allow me to set the black, the white, and the mid-grade points of the image. So I can simply select the black point and click on something that should be white in the image. That should be black in the image. And that is going to set that to true black, or whatever I have set in the options panel. And we're going to look at that in a second too. Same thing with the white. I can just click on something that should be white. For example, it seems like this building should be white. And I can click on something that should be neutral. And so forth. These are going to be driven by the options that I set up here in the options pane. So I can tell the system to set the shadows to 100% black, or I could change it here to whatever I prefer, so it doesn't have to be necessarily black. I could go ahead and make it a gray. Also, it's going to show clipping at 0.10% of black. And same thing with the highlights. It's going to show clipping at 0.10%, and highlight is at true white. And as I said before, you can change that. Same thing with the midtones. You can go ahead, instead of like 50% gray, you could set it to a different hue or a different value altogether. And you have different algorithms for the automatic calculation. So you can do it per channel or monochromatic, or you can do it by brightness and contrast. I like to use it per channel contrast, personally. All right, and then we have a little bit of options here at the bottom that allow us to change the channel overlays. So we come here, and of course we can do that. And we're not seeing it here, but if we were to change, let's see here. Let's do an automatic one, and you can see there the channel overlays. So I can go ahead and remove those. So I can see the green, blue, and red overlays are there. So that gets rid of that. The histogram is the histogram in the background here. So I can go ahead and remove that or make it available. I like to use it just as a visual representation of where the pixels are located in the image. The baseline is this original image, original line that we have that is going from side to side. So we can get rid of that one as well. So you can see it's gone. And then finally, the intersection line is the intersection line when I make a transition here. So you can see that as long as I'm clicking and dragging, I have a crosshairs here in my mouse. But if I get rid of that, then I would not get that. So this allows me to see a crosshair, or what's called an intersection line. All right. So those are the options that come with the curves panel. So how do you use it? Because now that we are familiar with the curves panel and how and the different options and what it does, then how does it work? Well, the curves panel basically has a curve that goes from dark input and dark output to light input and light output here. So as long as it is perfectly perpendicular there, or in the incline, 45 degrees, then it is pretty much representing whatever image you have originally. So let me just make this clear. If I go ahead and destructively make a change in the curve, hit OK, and then I go back to it, then it goes back to being completely 45-degree line here. So that means that now the new representation is this line. I hope that that makes sense. So let's get back. So this is always the original representation, whatever input and output that we have from dark to light. And these are going to represent the different pixels that we have in the different options. So if we drag from here, we can see that we're reducing the black point of the image. So everything is becoming darker. In other words, I'm really saying, get rid of all this information and start making everything black from this point of the image. So something that should have been a light, now it's completely dark. Same thing we can do with this one here. So we're moving the light point. So now everything that should have been a middle pixel, a middle gray, is now completely white, and so forth. If I can continue doing that. All right. So I can affect different portions of this image without having to affect the rest. So I can just basically place points and drag to make certain points, certain portions of the image different than what I had before. In this case, I am darkening anything that is lower than 50% gray by doing this. And if I add a point right here and I bring it up, that means that I'm increasing the light in everything that is lighter than 50% gray. What happens if I actually go here and draw a horizontal line right here at the very middle? It becomes 100% 50% gray. It becomes 50% gray. And then if I actually draw that horizontal line really close to the bottom line here, then it's going to make it black. And if I draw the line here at the very top, it's going to make it white. What happens if I invert this line? In other words, I draw it like this. Well, what happens is that everything that is supposed to be input as light is going to be outputted as a dark, and vice versa. So if I was to do this, then it would be the inverse of my image. And again, I'm affecting the whole composition in RGB channel, or the composite channel, and I could be doing it in independent channels as well. So you can see that this is exactly the inverse of the image. Some very, very common applications for the curves panel is when we want to create more contrast in an image. So you would increase the light in the highlights and reduce the darks in the shadows. And as you can see, it increases the contrast. It's often referred to as an S-shaped curve. So when you hear somebody say, please apply an S-shaped curve to an image, basically what they're saying is, please increase the contrast in the image. All right. Let's say that these highlights are too blown out. So what we can do is simply draw here at the very top. We can draw a little curve so that it doesn't go to the top, and you can see that it reduces the highlights. I'm going to do it even here so that it shows a little bit better in the screencast, and so forth. So I can affect different areas of the image. So let's say that I want to affect this blue shirt. So I can go to the blue channel, select my pointer here, and by just clicking on top, I can see where the shirt is located. By dragging down, I'm making my blue less blue or more yellow, and by increasing the blue or going up, I'm increasing the blue. So let me just go ahead and place a dot here, and I can now go ahead and increase the blue of the shirt without increasing the blue of the buildings in the background. Now, when you're affecting color, you probably don't want to do it in RGB mode. And the reason is because when you're affecting RGB, you are effectively affecting not only the color hue, but also the detail. Let me show you what I mean by going to the lab mode. So we change to lab color mode. Let's not flatten for now. We go to the curves. So we have lightness channel and A and B, which represent only the color. So here we have an effective separation of the light and the color hue. Therefore, now if we want to affect only the shirt in blue, then we can just affect the colors without affecting the amount of detail that those colors would carry. In RGB, on the other hand, color and detail are combined, and so when you're affecting color, you're also affecting detail because you're affecting the light channel that is combined in there. So when you want to affect a color, for example, the saturation of a shirt, it is better to do it when you are in lab mode color. So let's go ahead and do that. So I would select the B for blue and yellow, and then I would locate the shirt, which is right there. I would click on both sides of that shirt so that I'm not affecting everything else. And I would increase the I would modify the curve at that point so that it increases the saturation, as you can see. If I was to move this, I can increase the contrast of those two colors, yellow and blue. So very, very used technique. Let's say that on top of that, I want to change the contrast overall of the image, but of the light of the image or of the detail, then I can do that from the lightness channel. So let's hit OK. So if I go to channels, I can see that I can that I have a channel that has all the detail, and then I have two channels that really tell me what are the colors and what are the hues for that image, separate from that. So I do recommend using curves in lab mode when you are affecting saturation and hue. When you're affecting everything as a whole, then you can use, of course, RGB. So if you're not really interested in, let's say, changing a blue color to a red color, then it's perfectly fine to do it in RGB. Great. Another application that is very, very used in lab color with curves is to increase the overall saturation of colors, because sometimes cameras tend to be a little flat, and that's great because they give you a lot of control and a lot of detail, but the colors seem a little flat. So if that is the case, then you can always increase the saturation by increasing that curve, the steepness of the curve. So if I go to A, which stands for green and red, if I increase the steepness by the same amount, let's say I'm going to change this to 28 points, and then this one to 28 points. So I'm preserving the relationship between input and output, except that I am increasing the steepness here. Then you can see that I increase the saturation of reds and greens in the image. Let's do the same for blue and yellow. This time I'm going to do it for a little bit more. So now you can see that the blue and the yellow on the image has also been increased in saturation without affecting the lightness of the image. And that's a very, very used technique, using curves in lab mode color. Lab mode. All right. So basically, that's how you use the curves panel inside of Photoshop. Let's go ahead and change back to RGB mode. Don't flatten. So how do you do it without actually destructively affecting your image? Then you would create an adjustment layer by clicking here, adjustment layer, curves, and then using the property panel to modify. Pretty much everything else stays exactly the same. What I just did was to update the histogram. But as you can see, it works exactly the same way as what we have been covering before in the panel itself. And so that's pretty much it. So you can play with this to make incredible effects. For example, some effects have been made popular by Instagram, like the effect of getting rid of the steepness in the blue channel. So if I was to draw here like this, you can see that it looks like aged, and you can see a very popular effect in Instagram. So the curves channel, the curves panel, it's a fantastic way of changing the look and the feel of your images, and by having precise control of the different levels of your images, you're going to be a much better digital media artist. At the end of the day, a digital media artist is better because he has more control of all the tools and the techniques. So it's all about control. So now that you know a lot more about the curves panel, you should be in better control of your images. Now you can make specific targeting of some areas. You can decrease the shadows, you can increase the highlights, you can make the middle tones a little bit darker, you can increase the saturation of a shirt or the sky or things like that. Why would you do that? Because you want to control the message that you're sending, and that's what ultimately digital media is going to do. So hope that this has been helpful. Again, I welcome your comments down below in the YouTube box, and don't hesitate to contact us at mercados.com. Again, my name is Alex Centeno, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.